Hello, my name is Amber King from Abnormal Psychology, and I have chosen to do a movie analysis on A Beautiful Mind. It is about our main character, John Nash, and is inspired based on true events. John Nash was a mathematical genius and made his career very early by creating an equilibrium that is widely used for the economy and helped make discoveries in the extension of game theory. However, being a smart yet arrogant character, he soon had to realize his painful self-discovery. John Nash throughout the movie suffers from the mental illness schizophrenia. It is not shown at first throughout the movie, and everything seems rather normal. The viewer, though, does not realize that Nash suffers from schizophrenia until his wife Alicia teams up with the psychiatrist to admit him for treatment. When I say teams up, I do not mean it in the sense of crime or seeking, but I mean it in the way that she had her suspicions of him being ill and wanted him to go and seek help from a psychiatrist. This had to do with him acting erratic around her and not being mentally stable. I would say that John Nash met the criteria in the sense of having hallucinations, disorganized speech, and erratic behavior. John in the beginning withdrew from others for a major period when being at Princeton. He had a moment of self-harm, neglected hygiene, fear of persecution, and at some point even a lack of interpersonal relationships. An article written by Banyan Mental Health stated that John did suffer from a lack of emotion, the onset of symptoms, and the impact of the disease on a person's life, and delusions of grandeur. For more information, delusions of grandeur is when a person exaggerates the sense of significance, personality, authority, or knowledge. A person displaying the symptom may think and act as if they're superior to others in different ways. John did have a big ego throughout the movie before his schizophrenia worsened by claiming his classmates were unoriginal and that he could make something original. By this, he went out and did end up making something original and widely used, but his ego really threw off his classmates. For John to suffer from schizophrenia throughout the movie, it is important to know that at the very least, the movie portrayed that correctly. However, the movie was not entirely correct either. Banyan Mental Health does say that John did not suffer from just delusions. Just to inform a little more here, delusions are a common side effect of schizophrenia and can alter the belief or reality despite the evidence or agreement. And even if John did or did not suffer from delusions, it is important to know that he mostly had auditory hallucinations because he could hear things that were not real. Now, the movie definitely exaggerated the characters that John could see which included Charles Neese, and Agent Parker. Going based off of the 10th edition Fundamentals of Abnormal Psychology, John would most likely have positive symptoms. John's life did begin in his adult phase in the movie. It does not really talk about his childhood and his family history. If it was briefly spoken, the only time it would be when his wife Alicia had just first admitted him into the psychiatry, when he went to go see a psychiatrist, and she did not know a lot about his family background either. In the movie, more than likely, John had someone with schizophrenia in his family due to his symptoms coming on strong. The Mayo Clinic states that as children with schizophrenia age, more typical signs and symptoms of the disorder and begin to appear. To say, though, that John did or did not have early onset schizophrenia is left unknown. Unfortunately, though, there is no cure for schizophrenia. In the movie, John had to undergo a series of shock treatments, and as I do recall, 5 times a week for 10 weeks when he was first diagnosed. Once he was released, he was able to return home with his wife Alicia and had prescriptions to help manage his illness. The Mayo Clinic says that sticking with the treatment plan can help prevent relapses or worsening symptoms, but in this case, if the individual does not, then they will either relapse or they will only get worse. In the movie, John did end up relapsing by going off of his medications. He claimed that he felt like he needed to finish his work and stopped taking his pills, and it caused him to relapse. By the end of the movie, John made the realization that his hallucinations were not real because, as he puts it, they did not age. And by they, I mean Charles, his niece, and Parker. They did not age, and his life just kept moving on. The moment he knew his hallucinations did not age, he stopped acknowledging them and stopped speaking to them. Usually asked the common question of his students or friends or family if they were real and if they could see the person standing next to him. If they said yes, then he would talk to them, and if they said no, then he would just look funny and crack a joke. But none of this was easy for John, and eventually he grew to live an almost better life.